So
I'm sorry.
no, it's good. I'm actually feeling very, very positive about everything. People seem to like me at work, which is definitely a plus. And
Time for everything, I suppose.
yeah, I know. It's but yeah, it's nice to have something to do that isn't directly entirely based on me just going, yeah, I should do something.
Yeah, no, it's nice to have somewhere to be. It's
Yeah,
all part of a charm of the capitalist system, I imagine.
that is so true. But if things keep progressing as they have, retail will potentially be open end of next week or maybe even earlier if Dan Andrews is to be believed, and who knows about that. He's a politician. Never trust
I
a
don't know if
politician.
it's a case of belief. It's a case of what's happening between now and then. As the esteemed representative of
True.
this show who works for the a department of a particular public institution that may have some particular insight into what's going on with said virus, you know, you got to be nimble.
True. Yes. Yeah. I think that word is definitely the party line. Nimble.
Nimble. Like if they get 15 cases tomorrow, then.
But I'll tell you something though. I've been working in Doncaster Shopping Centre Monday and Tuesday, and I've been in Eastland today. And every single day that I've been in those shopping centres, the stores that have got the lines at the door, barbers and hairdressers.
Well, the first time I've opened for a number of months, so I know
Yeah.
a number of people who've sort of said the same thing and sort of gone, "Oh, I can get a haircut."
It's so strange that they've gone to like, oh yeah, the first thing that I need to do is get myself looking pretty.
I mean, like I haven't had a haircut since February, so I spoke to someone today who hadn't had one since for about the same time frame. So people, it's a bit like having a shower after you get off a long flight. Do people say to themselves, "Oh, I feel human again after you have a shower"?
That's fair. That's fair.
I feel like it's if you're getting a bit shaggy and you have your hair's all over the shop. It's not necessarily just making it look good; it's just getting it under control for a lot of people. So yeah, it's a privilege, I guess, but it's one that nonetheless a lot of people have missed, I imagine.
Yeah, I reckon so. And it's I guess it's that simple thing of the first step of self-care, I suppose.
Well, it's surprising, the little things that can make people feel better about themselves. I mean,
Yeah.
there are a lot of people out there who like wearing nice clothes. Dressing up. I mean, I literally hate it. Like, regular viewers will be shocked to see, to hear this, but I absolutely hate wearing shirts and suits and pants. I hate wearing formal clothes, and I know it's something you're supposed to do, but I don't like it, so I don't do it. Yeah, unless I'm getting paid. If I'm being paid, I'll do it.
That is true. It is the uniform for payment.
I've heard it called the business burqa, and I like that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But
there are a lot of people out there who really like it. So this is yet another thing. Like, people, once stuff opens again, they can get dressed up and go places.
Yeah,
it's going to be a big thing for a lot of people. For me and you, I imagine, just when cinemas reopen.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. I go past the cinemas at the shopping centres, and it's kind of like that longing. Oh, as I walk past, it's like, please.
The Astor put out a new poster. The Astor being the last single screen cinema in Melbourne, and it had Tenet as the top half. Because there's not a new product for them to choose from. So I think, given an opportunity, that's what I'll be doing. That's where I think I'll go and see. Because I don't think I'll get to see it. Maybe I get to see it on IMAX, but
maybe
both. Hopefully, it's good enough for both.
It'd be lovely to be able to go and experience that in the IMAX, but I'd want to, if that's going to happen, I would want to be able to have a beer afterwards and have a discussion.
I believe you could. I don't know how far. I mean, restaurants are going to be opening in the next couple of weeks, theoretically. So
apparently, yeah.
Maybe pubs will be as well.
Maybe, but we have started by. It seems to be a typical thing. Maybe it's just quarantine time.
It's kind of topical.
It is fairly topical, I suppose, yes. And no film encapsulates the bizarre world that we live in quite more than this week's Chain movie. That's a segue for you, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about Coraline. It was written for the screen and directed by Henry Selick, who also wrote and directed last week's Chain movie, which is The Nightmare Before Christmas, inspired by a Tim Burton story and produced by Tim Burton. Travis, when was the last time you watched Coraline, or have you not watched Coraline?
I've never watched this film before.
Okay, so this is your first time. Tell me your thoughts, my man.
It's just going to sound like a repetition from last week. I thought it was beautiful but dull.
It's fair.
So hello to my friend Leslie, who's tuning in on my Facebook Live. So if you jump onto the Fried Brain Productions, Leslie, you should be able to hear both of us talk. Unfortunately, if you want to stick with this camera view, you can only hear me. But if you
can also go over to
take my headphones off,
and you can go to Twitch as well. Twitch.tv/George Terran, I think it is. And youtube.com/armchair producers. So you'll be able to watch along live on those platforms.
Or I can take my headphones off and it'll come through the speakers, and theoretically you should now be able to hear the dulcet tones of my co-host.
I will put on more of a British accent.
I found this a little bit dull.
I would agree with that.
The first 2/3 of it I thought were really slow. Mm-hmm. And I was struggling to maintain any interest in it other than going, wow, this looks incredible. I mean, Nightmare Before Christmas last week looked amazing. This one looked like doubly amazing. So I have to imagine that would probably be due to the progression of computer graphics in the meantime, and there's some smoothing there or something. Computers were involved in the Hello, Corey. We are talking about Coraline, this week's film. So sorry to keep interrupting for people who
no. Engage with the people.
You don't like this me being interrupted? Tune in live. What was I saying? So I found it a little bit slow, a little bit hard to get involved in the story. But I was saying I found the actual animation. I feel like there was some sort of computer involved there because it looks so much nicer and smoother than Nightmare Before Christmas. So it was, that said, you go into the trivia on IMDb and you have a read of the ridiculous scale of this film. It's insane the amount of hours that went into animating this, the amount of resources. They had 26 different Coraline puppets or something like that. And I just found myself marveling at how beautiful everything looked and how gorgeous the animation was, even above. Like we talked last week about Nightmare Before Christmas, how amazing I thought that was. I think this tops it absolutely, comfortably. And it was just like some of the scenes, like I think the scene in the theater where we're over the dogs, and it was just amazing. But at the same time, I kind of found it hard to engage with the story a great deal or care about what was going on until they finally got a little bit more interesting in the third act. We should probably take a step back here. So if people are out there who are, we always do this, so of course. If you haven't seen Coraline like I have, and you just think it's that film of the puppets, an adventurous 11-year-old girl finds another world, this strangely idealized version of her frustrating home, but it has sinister secrets. That about sums it up. We have the young girl, Coraline, who finds a door in her home, the wall of her new home. At night, it opens up and takes her to a parallel world to her own, where her neglectful mother and father are actually doting, loving parents, and it's quite a seductive proposition for her. And as they start to she starts to spend more time there, that her other mother and father start to encourage her to stay, and in doing so, she has to sew buttons to her eyes. The actual other mother and father have buttons for eyes. Everyone in that world seems to have buttons for eyes, and so despite them looking a bit sinister, they don't quite match. But as things start to go on, she starts to get the odd hint here and there that things maybe aren't what they seem. So I guess that traditional careful what you wish for, sort of undertone, you might just get it. So I was being a curmudgeonly bastard, like always, before I started getting back into the mechanics of it. I found it a little slow and a little bit difficult to buy into, and I guess where I landed is why I think I was having a little trouble really engaging for story was I'm not sure exactly what the actual target audience of this is. I feel like on the one hand, this is aimed at a significantly part of it. At least the first two thirds, I felt like were really would match a very young audience.
Yeah.
Someone significantly younger than me. Whereas the last act, no way would I let a kid near this. Like it got really scary. Like not for a young audience. So I kind of where I started really engaging is where I feel like the film really stepped up and started actually serving me some content targeted at adults, whereas the first two thirds of it I felt like maybe keep the kids happy.
Yeah, I definitely feel I agree with you. This is a definite feast for the eyes. The amount of animation going on all at once when Coraline is going through the garden and things like that, it's insane. The visuals, the fact that Nightmare Before Christmas was a very bleak and gloomy and very pallid kind of color tone throughout the whole thing, except when you get to Christmasland, where it's a bit more bright, but even then it's still using a lot of dark and light versus color and volumetric kind of cinematography. This one, it's just really in your face. They go, yep, we know how to use modern day technology infinitely better to make this look stunning. It's lit amazing. I don't know whether they use higher quality cameras or something like that, but I totally agree with you. The animation is more fluid. It flows just wonderfully. You've still got, like I was talking about last week, and we agreed, that sense of living individual, that personality within each of the characters. But yeah, it's very, very slow to get started. And the kind of the moral of the whole film is really good. I think I mentioned it last week with Neil Gaiman's masterclass, talking about bravery being that point of actually going back to a place that you know is dangerous, to do something bigger than yourself. And that's,
I mean, to take a real world example, like remember those of us old enough to remember 9/11, the people who ran towards danger,
absolutely.
running into a burning building is I think maybe what you're talking about from I mean, the only good part of Dawn of Justice, Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice, is where all the buildings are falling over, but Bruce Wayne, he runs straight into it to actually try
and good sequence,
and that's that kind of moment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I do feel like there's a lot of build up beforehand. It's slow little elements, like we get to know Coraline and her character and her kind of the way that she views the world and how she thinks that it should be for her. And that's good. That's well done. But it is slow and kind of a little monotonous, and then it eventually, in that final third, it does kick it up a notch, and you suddenly go, "Oh, okay, cool." It's a bit of a slog getting there if you're not invested. Like I can absolutely see where you're talking about. We've talked about it for quite a few movies now, even going back to Child's Play, where there's that element of humor versus that serious tone, and how movies like Gremlins and things like that, where they balance those elements nicely. The first 2/3 of this movie very much feel like, yep, this is children's, and then the balance shifts, and I can kind of see a point of that in, well, children need to grow up at some point, but the twist in this movie is quite a sudden shift, and it does get pretty damn creepy.
Like, yeah, I think they can see how a parent might have taken their kid to this or got the video. It was 2009. It could have been a DVD. and go and watch the first 20 minutes and go, it's fine, it'll be fine. And then, having the kid freaking traumatized by the end of it because, like, oh my goodness, it really goes up to turns everything up to 11, and I liked that. I was like really enjoying it by the end, and that was the transformation of the other mother into a pretty creepy looking monster was really impressive and really enjoyable and tense.
Yeah,
and really tense. I was really engaged in the final battle, if you will, between Coraline and I forget the actual monster's name, the other mother. That would be. But yeah, it was really tense, and like I only wish they'd maybe managed to spent a lot of time on world building, a lot of time on character building, which is fine. Love characters.
Yeah.
But I just think it needed a little bit more punch.
I feel like they could have got more of that if they'd introduced the ghosts of the children a little earlier, because you are suddenly introduced with that, and there's a bit of an exposition dump, and then we're off to the races, and it's boom, 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 boom. Things happen and happen and happen. And if they had kind of just put a bit more of suggestion of that coming through, or a bit of introduction to it, that would have been, I think that would have been a good way to just speed that first half and 2/3 up a little bit more and make it a little bit more engaging. But
have you read the novel?
No, but I am going to get it on Audible because Neil Gaiman does the narration for all his own books, and he's very, very good. I am curious to see how close it sticks to the source material, because a lot of Neil Gaiman's adaptations, when you look at Stardust or American Gods, Neverwhere, the iterations that have been of that, they do stray quite a bit from the source material in what I feel are kind of key ways. Never in necessarily the same kind of, there's this very typical Neil Gaiman thing that he does that just doesn't translate to TVs, but it's I don't know, they always twist it, and I'll be curious to see what they kept in, what they added from the difference between the book and the movie.
I know the character of Webby wasn't in the book, and he's a creation of the filmmakers, Henry Selick, because he wrote the script to basically give Coraline a counterpart at her own age to sort of engage with and talk with, and he plays quite a pivotal role in the end. It's an 11-year-old film, people. Spoilers. Characters I really enjoyed. I massively enjoyed the actresses. So Miss Spink and Miss Forcible, and the fact that they managed to get Jennifer Saunders and Dawn French for those roles.
Yep.
Perfect choice. Amazing choice. I don't know that it would have worked anywhere near as well without those two. I mean, they've made a career out of working together, those two, and like
absolutely
chemistry together. Like, I wonder if when you hear those sort of those segments, you go, did they put them in a voice booth together? Did they do it at the same time? I really hope they did. But they didn't, like, have Dawn French come in one day and Jennifer Saunders come in on a different day and do her bit, because surely they got to work better with them in the same room.
Yeah, absolutely. I really liked Keith David's work as the cat.
Keith David was going to call it as well. He's so freaking cool.
Yeah, he absolutely nails that, the quite a quintessential cat characteristic of that smooth and cool movement, but also, I'm better than you kind of attitude. But there's not many people that I can think just have that innate kind of juxtaposition of those two personality types in one, and Keith David just does a really good job with it. I'm really, really impressed with it.
I had a thought, and this is just while I was watching it last night, one of the key things that there's not much runs across my mind when I'm watching these things. There's very little going on upstairs on a day-to-day basis. That's why I have the brains behind the operation at the other end of the call here. Very little going on upstairs, but I did have a thought. That was, it kind of reminded me, and maybe it was the cat thing, but did I get a hint of Kiki's delivery service in the cat character?
Yeah.
I wonder if the Ghibli films are an influence on someone like Henry Selick. He has this. They have this sort of. He has a darkness that I don't think the Ghibli films do quite the same way. But this sort of playful other world that he sort of manages to create. It would be, and considering they are in different genres of animation, but it would be surprising if he wasn't, a fan of Miyazaki's work.
I think that would definitely make sense. I would, especially you saying that Neil Gaiman was the one who did the screen adaptation or the screenplay adaptation of Princess Mononoke from the Japanese market to the Western market. So there is already kind of a connection between those source materials, I guess. So it's interesting that you found that connection anyway, and I would kind of agree. There's an element of Phil Hartman and Gigi in the cat in this movie.
Maybe it's just a smooth talking, smart ass cat sort of character who never know it all. But you're right, it's kind of matches what a cat's personality should be, I would imagine. So I forgot that was Phil Hartman. Jeez, he's missed.
I know that's a long time ago, but
we did, for those who we used to do seasons on this show. We would do a season would be 4 or 5 episodes where we would spend all our time looking mainly at a particular genre or director or actor. Who could forget the Steve Guttenberg season? I surely haven't. That was a treat. That was a treat for everyone involved. There's a reason we moved away from him. But we did do a season where George did his best to educate me on the world of anime. And you know what? That was a boon because I think the year after that, I went back to Japan for the second time. And then all of a sudden, when I saw Kiki's Delivery Service stuff anywhere, I'm like, oh!
Life made sense.
I know what that character is. That's the cat from Kiki's Delivery Service now. All of a sudden, everything made a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. So, overall...
One of a quick call out on the voicing, and that was Ian McShane, who did a wonderful job as Babinski.
Yes, Babinski, yeah. I love Ian McShane's voice. I think he's great.
I don't know, but I didn't realize it was him because, I think Ian McShane. John Wick. It's probably the most recent thing I've seen him in that I always connect him with. But I was like, oh my god, he did the Russian voice. Mm-hmm. And he was fantastic. But I just loved it. Also, I didn't pick this up until I read the trivia on IMDb, and then I watched it again a little bit closer. The attention to detail. Just take it back to the technical side of things again. The attention to detail involved in the characters. The medal he's wearing is a medal for being part of a cleanup crew for Chernobyl in 1986. It's a unique kind of medal that, so that's what it is, though. It's a Chernobyl medal. And I honestly don't know Chernobyl well enough to go, it's a Chernobyl medal, but people did actually go back. So you can see it says this and that thing. And I'm like, the attention to detail is insane.
That's it entirely. I think that's one of the real big things about stop motion movies, and when you look at other stop motion movies like Isle of Dogs and the Fantastic Mr. Fox, just to name 2 from Wes Anderson, it takes so long to film all of these sequences that it's we're going to wring every single bloody bit of information and beauty and just world building into every single frame as we can, because otherwise we're just wasting a fuckload of time.
Yeah, I mean, and they've got I guess they got time to get bored and put little jokes in, and I'm sure this film's packed with little gags and little nods to other things that I maybe wouldn't notice, but maybe no one would notice except for the animator, right?
Yeah.
Disney animators did the same thing in their cell animated films because they never figured anybody would have, DVD quality, and be able to freeze frame the hell out of everyone and look at every single frame individually and find that, little weird thing.
There's the outline of Mickey Mouse every single time,
all the crazy things that the wacko Christians in the 90s said were in at Disney films, you freeze frame it and squint, you can almost look like a breast, like. But yeah, I love when they put that little nods into it, or little almost personal jokes that they don't expect anybody to get. But I think it shows the real love for their craft and a real respect for it, and I think it elevates the film. Again, just go to the technical is amazing. How did this film not win an Oscar?
Yeah, I mean, what year was this out?
2010.
Okay.
The 2010 Oscars. I bet it lost to a freaking Pixar film. It had to.
Probably, yeah.
They always win that. Which is fine. They're usually very good.
Yeah, let's have a look.
It lost to Up.
Up. Okay.
No, sorry, tell a lie. I'm looking at that was a different one. I saw Up and I thought surely that's it.
No, that's best animated feature.
Yeah. It's on the list. Up is a goddamn masterpiece.
It is fucking amazing.
You mentioned fantastic. Mr. Fox is in there as well.
Yep.
Princess and the Frog and Coraline. Some decent competition.
Yeah, I think it was overall that was a very healthy year, and I think that Up was probably the right one to win, just on a complete holistic thing. Technologically, it's so close, but the fact that Up has a very good progression of story, it keeps you engaged throughout the whole thing. Whereas I think we both agree, this is a much harder movie to get through at the start, and the payoff is still very good, but I don't know whether it still kind of weighs up enough at the end to go, oh no, it was worth going through that first hour to get to the last 40 minutes.
We have a question on my Facebook stream here. So Corey says Coraline the book has appeared in school book lists at year 7. Interesting.
Oh.
What are your thoughts on it being used in schools? I haven't seen it nor read it. Well, neither of us have read the book, and George is more familiar with Neil Gaiman than myself. Does his books, I didn't get the impression he wrote books that were suitable for children.
He does. He definitely does. I think he's especially apparently he'd been working on Coraline for many years, and it was one of those things that just slowly developed over time. So I would be really interested to see if the book does do the same thing of kind of showing the writer's evolution from his early initial thoughts as he progressed through and just got better as a writer and came in and went off and did other projects, and then came back and kind of went, oh yeah, I could do more of this. And I generally associate Neil Gaiman as doing much more of the older child or sort of older teen adult books. I find that there's often a lot of subtext and general context and violence in his stuff that I personally wouldn't really have a problem kind of saying, oh yeah, a 10-year-old can read this, I'll be fine. There is a little bit of scary in there, but it's not done in that kind of gregarious, in your face, terrifying element. It's just kind of life is scary, even in these fantasy worlds. Almost kind of Hans Christian Andersen kind of element to it. But yeah, I mean, he's done The Ocean at the End of the Lane is a relatively new book of his that seems to be more angled towards a younger audience. But again, I haven't read that yet. But most of his famous works, definitely more adult. You're thinking American Gods, even Stardust to a certain degree. It's got a very kind of adult feel to it. That's kind of an illustrated book, but in some ways, the Anansi Boys, all those kinds of things. It's definitely more skewed to the older, but it's not. None of his stuff is kind of exclusive. You never kind of read his things and go, oh yeah, no one. This is definitely not for them. It's like, okay, the explanations, the stories, the words, the explanations of things and situations is all very good, and it's very open to everyone, and it's very well planned and well executed stuff that I think that even a younger reader can kind of go, okay, I know what's going on. There are a couple of words I need to ask about, and oh, that's scary. I need mum or dad to just explain this to me and help me feel better. But I don't think there's out and out terror.
Corey says she would imagine they would receive a film after they read the novel. I think that would be a logical.
I reckon so.
Logical movement. You know, I don't know. I don't run English classes. I think it'd probably turn into an exercise to go, well, give me a critical analysis of the differences between the book and the film and why did they do it and stuff. I don't know. This film would probably be. It would be probably okay, I think, for a year 7. So at 13, 14, I would say for a set. They'd probably be fine with it. I don't think you want to skew too much younger than that for if the content of a book is like the film. It's going to be a challenging read for them. But I mean, I guess I'm putting my 2020 hat on. I do that in the sense that kids' films these days are wussy. And they underestimate children, I think.
There's only a few people really making children's movies where they go to the length of actually putting this subtext in to kind of go, yeah, this is a family movie. We're putting these little jokes in or these little meanings for the adults. And when the kid comes back to this in 5 or 6 years, they're going to go, oh, okay. I didn't even see that beforehand, or I didn't understand that before. You think about going back to so much of the TV animation from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, where it's like just batshit crazy stuff, and you just laughed at it because it was animated. And now when you go back and look at it, it's like, oh, I'm thinking Ren and Stimpy as a prime example.
The Simpsons to a degree as well. The Simpsons was pretty out there when it started. I mean, they got into an argument with a sitting US president.
Yeah. I mean, it's that kind of thing. But then you think about movies now and you think, I don't know, the Trolls movies, they're not exactly gunning for thought-provoking animation. There's going, oh yeah, we're just making a bright-colored animated movie that parents can just sit their child in front of and have an hour and a half away from being a parent.
I think that kind of thing's always existed. I mean, the Care Bear movie was a thing. I think it was a My Little Pony movie. Care Bear movie's on the list for my throwback podcast. I'm looking forward to that one.
Now I think that if you're going to do that, you've got to complement it with gummy bears, man.
There's a whole point behind that podcast is films I saw when I was young and enjoyed. I don't remember a Gummy Bears movie.
Yeah, there was one. It was I think it was made for TV. I don't think it got a cinema release. Yeah.
I think shitty animations always existed. I just feel like if you look at a film, I always go back to it. Dark Crystal, fucking scary as shit. Like that film wouldn't get across the line these days for children.
I really don't. I don't think that it would be made. If they just went point for point, released the Dark Crystal today, I don't think it would be made because I doubt that it would get in the PG-13 bracket, and they're probably not going to make that movie for a 15 rated release.
Well, exactly. I mean, you don't make animated films for adults, at least not major studios. I mean, animation in the West is still
largely a family affair,
unless you're Wes Anderson. And,
True.
You get that kind of cast behind you, and you've got that kind of cachet. He's become almost like a little bit of a Tarantino, right? Like Tarantino just comes into the script and says, "I'm making this," and they go, "Here's $200 million. See you later," because he's Quentin Tarantino, and his films, people just turn up to watch it now because it's almost an event. And so I think Wes Anderson's kind of got that cachet, a cool cachet now, where people, it's a Wes Anderson film, I'm going.
Yeah.
He put his name on the poster, people will go. So he gets to make a film like Isle of Dogs, which I loved, by the way. It was a wonderful movie, but I don't think it's not really a children's film. A child could probably enjoy it, but it's not aimed at children. I think they're going to miss a lot of the gags in that.
Agreed. I think that you're absolutely nail on the head. There's nothing outlandishly, oh no, that is not child safe about that movie. But at the same time, it's dealing with very mature, actual kind of themes and thoughts.
Yeah, I haven't seen it for a couple of years now, but I mean, so it's about a small boy and his dogs. I guess to get away with it, but I mean, again, I don't know if he's making films for younger audiences, and I think he's probably the only person I can think of who could get away with making a high budget stop-go animated period film of any kind that isn't making its main pitch at children. I mean, Pixar, for all their genius at making films parents can enjoy, they're pitching to kids.
Oh, of course, yeah. They know how to make their money.
But I mean, their genius is that parents go, cool, I'll take your kid to see the Pixar film. Where as opposed to, I'm going to take him to see the Trolls movie. I see my someone who's related to me, who may or may not be my sister, is now watching at least she was a second ago, on my Facebook stream here. And it reminds me, when I was a kid in school holidays, you get roused out of bed at an ungodly hour in the early afternoon, and be told, taking your kids, your sister, to the movies. I had to take him to see Fern Gully twice. I feel like it was twice.
Why would anyone do that to themselves?
Trashy animation in the 90s as well. As good as Robin Williams was in that film. I mean, we've kind of gone a long way off it, but here, I'm glad films like this still exist. I'm glad films like Isle of Dogs and Fantastic Mr. Fox still exist, and people are still making stop-go animated films, because there's something about this film. It feels more tactile, more real. It is not true, Alicia. I did not love that film. Price check on Prune Juice Barb. Price check on Prune Juice. That is a Fern Gully reference for the Fern Gully fans who are tuning in. I know our Russian bot fans are big. Something more tactile or real about. I have a dog licking my feet. Go out, get away. Tactile or real about the stop-go animated film, or a film like Coraline, which was just gorgeous. So, like, it didn't feel. I mean, you never forget you're looking at something animated, even when you see something as amazing as Pixar.
Yeah.
But this, you could almost believe that they were real.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. I've got to say, have you watched Kubo and the Two Strings?
I haven't. I know I should. It just looks kind of boring.
It's so good. Even just on a technical level, opening of that movie is, that famous Japanese painting of the giant wave?
Yeah.
They essentially recreate that with stop motion animation, and it is breathtaking. Absolutely breathtaking.
I hear only good things about it, so maybe I get to it at some point. But I mean, it doesn't scream to me.
Well, that's all right. For all the things that you are wonderful and a delight for, you are also a godless heathen and other things.
I'm a godless heathen and awfully fussy, grumpy old curmudgeon. And it looks like it's set in the magic and stuff like that. And you know me in fantasy, we don't get along. I'm sure I'll get to it at some point in time. I mean, one thing that's been on my to-do list for a while, speaking of animated films, is to see the follow-up film from the people who made Your Name.
Oh, yes.
Makoto Shinkai, I think. Makoto Shinkai, I'm pronouncing it poorly, but he and his crew made a follow-up film called Weathering With You, which came out last year, and apparently is excellent.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm keen to get around, considering I loved Your Name so very much.
Yeah, absolutely. But as we wrap up our review of Coraline, where are we going next?
Well, I honestly hadn't actually thought much about it. I just sort of had a quick squeeze while we were talking then, and I think there's only one obvious place to go, considering technically next week is kind of Halloween week. Now it's the following Saturday. So, and we're going to go with something a bit spooky, a bit scary, a bit out there. There's only one person to follow, and that person is Keith David.
Okay, so we're following Keith
here
David.
We have a choice, because there are two productions in his filmography that stand out as being perfect. One of them is probably one of my all-time favorite movies, probably even my top 5 movies of all time, would be The Thing. And the other one would be They Live. So 2 great John Carpenter films.
Okay.
But, I mean, it is Halloween. They Live is more of a science fiction movie. So
Well, I'm just going to do a check and see the availability. So They Live is not on streaming services, is not downloadable,
Oh, it's
apparently.
downloadable.
Oh, I mean legally speaking. Whereas,
Ben, I always say I subscribe to 4 streaming services, people in Hollywood. If you can't get your shit together and post your film on one of them, not my problem.
Meanwhile, The Thing is streaming on Binge. It's on Foxtel now, and it's available to rent and buy on Amazon, Apple TV, and YouTube.
And it's a spooky movie, sort of kind of thing. Where the other one's more of a science fiction movie, action movie, which is still a lot of fun. But I feel like The Thing will, hit our Halloween kind of theme. And I mean, I also feel like it is fair of me to leave you with a few different places to go. There's a little guy in it called Kurt Russell who's done a couple of things, and
1 or 2, yeah.
And there's a couple other blokes in there who's done some stuff. So, director did a couple of films you might have heard of. So I feel like you'll have no trouble picking something good to follow up on The Thing with. And I just feel like the last couple of weeks, and they certainly haven't been unfair considering Death Machine. But at the same time, they've been. I feel like they've been a bit of a slog. I'm going to get shut. Calling A Night Before Christmas a slog. I didn't love it, but I mean, it's certainly not my bread and butter. Whereas The Thing, I think we both know what we're going to get with this one.
Okay, so I have a request. Can I be in control of the next 2?
Yeah, I think we can live with that.
Cool, because I know exactly where I'm going in that case.
You got a thing you want to do. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm getting the keys to the castle. The Thing. By the way, this is the 1982 film, not the 2011 sequel reboot piece of shit.
Prequel,
sequel, garbage. And it is not the original Howard Hawks, the Thing that came from another world.
I would like to actually come to the defense of the more recent The Thing, because it's not a bad movie. It is just utterly unnecessary. Completely.
Sorry, I couldn't make it through. I couldn't make it more than half an hour into it. I just hated every minute of it. It was not good for me. I really hated it. And I guess part of it is when someone does attacks their film onto something you really enjoy, some of your favorites, and they sort of trying to sort of swim along in its wake. It's got a very high hurdle bar to cross. I mean, like when we saw Blade Runner a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we walked out of the cinema and George said, "You hated that, didn't you?" Like, no, I actually really liked that. The bar was set super high for Blade Runner 2049, and fortunately for everyone involved, Denis Villeneuve cleared it comfortably. When you're going to tack your product onto a film as good as the original Thing, the bar is just so freaking high, and you're never going to clear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it didn't come close for me.
I mean, at least, if they're shooting for the moon, you're still going to get some kind of flight going, perhaps. But like I said,
and you get a release.
The biggest problem is it's basically a remake of The Thing, but they are setting it as, oh, this is a prequel. This is what happened at the Swedish base, and like, what? No, part of the compelling thing of The Thing is that we don't know that, and it's not explained straight away why there's people shooting at a dog that's running through the snow. It's just an intriguing MacGuffin moment, and they didn't need to do it. It's unnecessary.
It's a little bit like I always said the Star Wars prequels were going to be a difficult and uphill battle to end that well, because we all know how it ends.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no mystery about Anakin. What's going to happen at the end of Return of the Jedi? Always people like, what's going to happen to Vader? What's Luke going to do? Is he, like, so many unanswered questions. All those questions are answered.
Yeah.
We know exactly who Anakin turns out to be and what he turns out to be. So it's always going to be a bit of a downer at the end of episode 3. So I wasn't surprised. Well, I don't think anyone's surprised considering the quality of the first 2. But before that, I was like, how are they going to make this good? When you know what with a prequel, when you know what comes afterwards, it's a difficult task. But the thing next week, you will hear us. It'll be a love fest next week, is because that film.
Yeah,
I think we both enjoyed.
yeah. It's arguably my favorite live action movie. That it shares that position with I think 5 movies, and they vary depending on my mood. But yeah, it's phenomenal. So that is enough on what's happening next week. Now, I want to know, do you want to talk about one or two of your viewing pleasures for the past week?
I could talk about one or two.
What are you going to talk about, my man?
So, I don't know if you got to it, but the new series of Brave New World came out on Friday, I believe. And it is on Stan here in Australia. So, if you are in another country, eventually when this is released, it's a Showtime production, I think.
It's a Peacock production.
So you just Google it, I guess, find out where it's showing in your local neighborhood Stan in Australia. So this is based on the Aldous Huxley book.
Kind of a mythically
one of the most important books of the 20th century. I don't think I'm talking out of school by saying that. It's in, people will be, it's 1984 or it's Brave New World. They're kind of this dystopian fiction. And there's an argument, like a lot of people go, hey, we're living in 1984. And you kind of like, I've seen arguments say that Huxley's book is maybe more accurate. That's for a different podcast. For those who haven't read Brave New World, shame on you. Get around to it. In a utopia whose perfection hinges upon control of monogamy and privacy, members of a collective begin to question the rules, putting their regimented society on a collision course with forbidden love and revolution. So this is a rather interesting cast. As we sort of kick off, I don't recognize any of these people until we get sort of outside a little bit deeper into the show. So eventually we meet John the Savage, played by Alden Ehrenreich. Notable, of course, for playing Han Solo in Solo movie. And just to go back for those who don't watch or listen regularly, I thought he was really good in a very poor movie. I thought he did a really good job as Han Solo. Actually, it was really solid. If it in a better film, he would have done. I think
Alden Ehrenreich is a very good actor. He's been in a lot of kind of stinkers, but his performances in them have always been solid, if not teetering on the point of, he could almost save this movie.
Well, I mean, this is his first credit since Solo 2 years ago. So I think it's fair to say that film didn't do his career any favors, which is a shame because, as I said, it's not his fault that film sucked. That goes to Ron Howard and Kathleen Kennedy. Demi Moore pops up in this, and I'm just going, hang on, that is Demi Moore, and in a really really interesting little role for her, and quite a big name. Those are probably the two names faces you'll instantly go, yeah, know them. The others are also young, good-looking folk who are on the up and coming. We have Jessica Brown Finlay. You might recognize was in an episode of Black Mirror if you're a big fan of Black Mirror like me. She plays Lenny in The Crown. So we are introduced to this world where it's a little bit like Gattaca in parts, where people aren't really born anymore. They are sort of gestated, if you will. Almost everyone's sort of artificially created rather than through conception and then being born. And everyone they have a very clear caste system from alpha plus to alpha to beta plus to beta, right down to epsilon, I think was the bottom one. And we meet Lenny in The Crown, who's sort of our protagonist, and she's being told off by her boss, Bernard Marx, played by Harry Lloyd, who looks like a name I should remember, but I don't think I've seen him in anything. And he's basically telling her off for having a monogamous relationship. And it's not like he's her boyfriend or anything. He's like her boss or something. And he's telling her off for having a monogamous relationship.
Oh, that's where Harry Lloyd is probably most famous for. He played Daenerys' brother in Game of Thrones.
As the universal rule on this show is, if someone is in a production and looks like they should be somebody, and they go, I don't know who that guy is, they were on Game of Thrones. That's what happens.
Yep.
Especially if they're British. So Bernard is assigned a task of actually trying to figure out is later after he's told off Lenina for only sleeping with one person. He's assigned a task to investigate the death of an Epsilon who are at the bottom level caste. And in doing so, starts to wonder if the Epsilon has committed suicide, which is unheard of in this utopian world in which they live in. Aside from that, we sort of juxtapose this utopian world of Lenina and Bernard with the an almost Disneyland-esque theme park that it sits outside the borders of the utopian world in which Lenina and Bernard live, and it's called Savageland. Which is a theme park for the people from the utopia to come and visit, which has displays and shows of savagery, including capitalism, shopping.
Their version of Westworld.
A bit like Westworld, or a monogamy where there's actually an actual wedding ceremony and that kind of thing. And it's all a put on, and that's where John the Savage comes in. Alden Ehrenreich's character he works at Savageland. He lives separately outside the park with his mother, who is played by Demi Moore, and he sort of ramped, what do you call keelhauled into helping with a sort of an ongoing revolutionary group who are sort of trying to use the park to make a political statement about being used as their lives and their way of life being used as an amusement for the people from the utopian world. So I don't want to give away any spoilers for people who haven't seen it or had a chance to read it.
How much of this have you watched? Because there's 9 episodes, right?
9 episodes. I'm 3 episodes in.
Okay.
So I don't have limited time to watch everything, unfortunately. But I thought was actually trepidatious, if that's a word, at the start of this, because there's so often something like, I think, I thought I was quite excited early on by Watchmen, and I liked some of the early episodes, but it kind of felt like it took itself so goddamn seriously. It ran out of steam halfway through for me. And a product like this, where it's based on a book I really enjoyed and I think really topical, I felt like there was a lot of different ways I could go wrong with this. It's not perfect by any stretch of imagination. It suffers from the same effect a lot of shows do these days. We talked about Condor a few months ago, where it was populated largely by anonymously attractive person number one and anonymously attractive person number two with no real personality or character, right? You don't really give a shit who they are. The guy might be the protagonist, but he really is just
Joe Everyman,
generically good-looking person number one.
Yeah.
I just suffer a little bit from this, apart from someone like Alden Ehrenreich, who, and maybe it's because he's been in movies and you recognize him, but for me, he and Demi Moore, when they're on screen, really grab my attention back in, and I'm sucked back into the story because they're such wonderful actors and they work so well together. And I'm immediately pushed back out again. Well, further out, I should say, not completely out of the story, by the rest of the cast, because they are just generic good-looking person, which, I mean, they probably should be, considering they're all being genetically engineered. They're not going to genetically engineer any fat, ugly people, but so they're all going to be sort of generic good-looking person, but I don't know any of them are good enough actors to really grab my attention. But I mean, and that could be a deliberate creative choice in the sense that we are inside this generic utopia, which is, perfect, safe, no pain, yada, yada, yada. So the fact that everyone sort of lacks individuality is probably a choice they've made, but it does tend to alienate me a little bit. But 3 episodes in, I've actually get some seriously entertaining set pieces in the show, and some shocking stuff happens. It's a lot of fun at times, which is not what I expected from a story about Brave New World. I feel like they've updated it a little bit. Okay. Which is kind of what it needed. So if you're going in expecting a pure adaptation of Huxley's book, sorry. I think it was written, I don't remember when the book was actually written, but I reckon it'd be about 100 years ago now. But I recall them like flying helicopters around and stuff like that. And the Model T, they worship the Model T because 1931.
1932, yeah.
Yeah, 31, 32. So they worship the T. The Model T was the kind of the thing. So
Yeah.
if I recall correctly. So
that's it. I mean, when you look at so much sci-fi, they in good quality sci-fi, like like in the original Brave New World, or lots of Philip K. Dick stuff and Arthur C. Clarke and things like that, they do prognosticate all these amazing things. And it's like, yeah, well, that's out of date now because technology has exploded.
Yeah, no one's flying helicopters.
Because you can take a helicopter down with 2 carefully placed shots from a pistol.
I saw that film too. I think where it gets a little bit topical is the idea of soma.
Yes.
Which is, the drug that everybody in the utopia takes to basically dull their emotions and feel no pain and yada, yada, yada. I mean, there's an argument to be said that a lot of things we do and have in society these days are non-chemical versions of soma. And there's an essay in that for someone. I'm sure someone's writing a piece on that today, but I'm not going to go down that path. Other than to say, but I liked it. I really quite enjoyed it so far. I'm keen to keep going. It's kept me interested enough to go back and watch some more. So hopefully I'll find the time to get around to actually finish the season. It's as I said, it's not perfect, but pretty good. Pretty good.
Cool. Okay.
Excellent. I'll quickly cover off one more in the sense that I'm going to quickly stop. I did watch a new true crime show on Netflix called American Murder. The family next door, the wife next door. I can't remember the exact title, but I'll quickly look it up so I can tell you exactly what it is. The family next door. You like true crime? Yes, watch that. Okay, good.
Okay. That was a quick current topic of discussion.
I enjoyed it. But I was going to say, what I wanted to quickly cover is I went back and had another go. It's my third go at Star Trek Discovery.
Oh, yes. I saw this.
So a little bit of background. I am a fan of Star Trek since I can remember. I jumped into the new series a couple of years ago when we first premiered and found myself not hugely taken by it initially. But by the end of season 1, I was on board with Star Trek Discovery. It had some interesting stuff going on. And I managed to get past all the political PC nonsense that they were throwing in there, which I felt was completely superfluous. And, and felt, okay, fine, no worries, When they're going to put gay characters in for the sake of having a gay character, for me, I find it annoying. Fine, she just it's like when they turned... what's his name's character? Character, Sulu in the last Star Trek movie. They just sort of randomly, he's gay now, and you're like, well, now hang on. Just because the actor who played him originally is gay, he's gay now. Wouldn't it have been a more brave choice to have made Spock or Kirk gay? But anyway, it's window dressing, and I don't like it. But anyway, I made it past all that stuff that they were doing in Discovery, the swearing, that anyone can die at any moment stuff that they were doing, and was excited for season 2. Season 2 was a massive, massive letdown for me. I couldn't get through it. I got halfway through, and the storyline was so convoluted and boring and all over the shop. I didn't care anymore, and I noped out. Yeah, and I've going to be, and then the same secret hideout and Kurtzman and co. bought us the tragically awful Star Trek Picard earlier this year, I think it was.
I hung on to hope that was going to land really well for a very long time of that series, but it just didn't.
It was bad. Yeah. It was really bad, and it annoys me to see how many Trek fans go, "Oh, it's good," and you're like, "No, it's not." So I was really kind of like out, but I'm like, I've seen it. Season 3 has just premiered, and it's been renewed for a 4th season. Very surprising considering how poorly it's rated, for what I understand. But anyway, I thought to myself, and I keep hearing people go, "Oh, it's so good! The end of season 2 was so good." And I really couldn't be asked watching another half a season just to find out at the end of season 2 was any good. So I just skipped to the end. So take that caveat. It probably wasn't the ideal way to watch it, but the end of season 2 it really wasn't ideal because a whole bunch of stuff's going on. There's like they've got some sort of data on the computer that somebody called the control or something are trying to get off them, and they try to blow up the ship to get rid of the data, but the data won't let them blow up the ship, so they have to go for ridiculous.
I've just got Galaxy Quest in my head now.
It's yeah.
Why would they even put that here?
Yeah. Well, it's difficult to take it seriously. It takes itself very seriously. But basically, they should just change the name of this show, by the way, from Star Trek Discovery to Star Trek Burnham, because that's what this show is. Like, I think the real strength of Star Trek in the past was its ensemble cast. You know, like we had in Next Gen, we had Picard and Riker, who were probably Picard for sure was probably the main character, being the captain. But there would be whole episodes where he would not do a whole lot, and you'd be all about, Geordi and Data going on an adventure, or heaven forbid Troy doing something, because they were the worst episodes. But they actually, and I guess the problem for me is that the seasons now, Star Trek Discovery is designed to have a season-long arc, and it's all about what Burnham does. So Burnham has to build a time suit and then like jump into the future to take the Discovery into the future, so that the data that's on it can't be used by these nefarious groups in the past. So it actually they travel to like 1,000 years into the future to actually escape from these people who are trying to hunt them down, which is a nifty idea, but it's just so convoluted. So yeah, there was a character who does all this stuff all the way through season 2. There's a mysterious character who saves the Discovery a bunch of times, and it's like they call her the Red Angel. And of course, at the end of the season, we find out the Red Angel is just Burnham going back in time, doing a bunch of shit, and it's so cringeworthy. It's really awful. Like every good idea they come up with, or interesting art concept they come up with, instantly gets cut off at the knees by 4 or 5 really bad scenes. And things that I liked early on, so that were really kind of Michelle Yeoh playing Philippa Georgiou, and now she plays the Mirror Universe Georgiou. That's a whole thing about what the fuck that actually means. And like initially, it seemed like a really cool like a concept to have, like, bring back the Mirror Universe, because that was, of course. That's canon Trek. That's been used a couple of times in the old series, and it was interesting to see what they were going to do with it. But now she's just like parody. She's like, she's like nefarious, evil character number 12, and you'd be like, she should be wandering around twirling a mustache, going,
That's always the problem with great villains in movies and TV shows. They sort of like strike a chord with audiences in their kind of debut appearance, and it's like, wow, that villain is really cool, I want to see more of that. So like, okay, let's turn them into an anti-hero, or let's just keep bringing them back, because you're not going to get sick and tired of the same thing, and it's not going to have diminished returns. No, not at all. It is. It always happens. Loki is generally regarded as one of the very best villains in the MCU, and now he's fucking joke, and it's detrimental to Tom Hiddleston as an actor, and it, going back and seeing him as the kind of the hidden villain in Thor and the villain of the first Avengers movie, where he's actually an interesting and competent foil for the heroes. It's every single time afterwards, he's just a joke, and it's like, okay, fine. If they bring back Killmonger, they're probably going to go, oh yeah, you're now actually resurrected into a puppet.
Trust me, they could find a way now. They probably would, considering the sad news about Chadwick Boseman. But that's what they've done with it. It's just like it used to be cartoons as kids, where like the bad guy and the good guys would team up for one episode, and you're really just waiting for, because you watch this cartoon 50,000 times. Even if you've never seen it before, you know what's going to happen. The bad guy's going to double cross them at the end. That's what the bad guy does, and you're just waiting for Michelle Yeoh to do that, and whether she does or doesn't, it just ceases being interesting. And again, huge caveat next to the whole thing is I didn't miss a giant chunk of episodes in the middle of that season, because I just couldn't stomach it anymore. So the two-parter to finish season 2 and then they scoot forward in time to do something. Spoilers, guys, but I mean, it's been out for a year. If you were going to watch it, and that they were ever going to not get away. And in start of season 3, which I did watch, I think I did finish. I think I did finish the first episode of season 3. It took me a couple of sittings because it was also very annoying. It's a little better. Basically Michael Burnham crash lands on a planet. In doing so, she crashes into someone's spaceship and survives, which is a nifty trick. And triples his spaceship. And then they, need to again.
So basically, they recreate Enemy Mine.
I don't know what that is.
That's actually a surprisingly good movie where a human and an alien that have been in a war. Basically, they have to work through their own difficulties and the war and the segregation between the two of them in order to survive. It's actually surprisingly good.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. Essentially, she now needs this guy's help to figure out. She can't contact Discovery. I mean, Discovery's come through to time for her as well. She now needs this guy's help to figure out. She can't contact Discovery. I mean, Discovery's come through to time for her as well, and she can't contact him. She needs his help to do that. He's pissed at her because she fucked up his ship. And they go to a local trading post nearby, and they sort of have this scene where they walk over a hill and overlook this, sci-fi trading post. I guess just waiting for one of them to go, a more wretched hive of scum and villainy you'll never find.
I was going to say, what's the missing parts and flux capacitors, or
and they need to go in anyway. Stuff happens when they get in.
I need to get some power converters.
Yeah, pretty much Toshi Station. It's just like, yeah, okay, fine. It's not terrible. It's just not good though. Like, I mean, if Star Trek Picard had been like this and every episode was all about Picard and only about Picard, I would have been fine with that because that was on the poster. It said Star Trek Picard. Yeah, I'm signing up for that. I want to see him doing stuff. I don't want to. I don't want to have to. I don't want to have to. Watch all the other boring stuff that was going on in that show. All the stuff on the Borg cube. Ugh.
That's it. It does seem like they've got a real problem with naming of these series because Picard, by the end of it kind of just became a tangential character. There's like, oh yeah, he's also here. We forgot about Grandpa, and then in Discovery, it's like, look at all of these people, and then we're actually just going to focus on this one.
It's all about Burnham at the end of the day, and so the entirety of season 3, episode 1 is about Burnham and the other guy she's crash into. I'm sure the other characters will come back at some point in time, but no, not good. But the best film that Trek ever did, I think, film wise, think of something like First Contact, which I know is a controversial choice, is one of their better films, but I think it's great. What happens at the start of the film? The crew is split up. Yeah, you got Picard on the ship doing his thing. You got the guys down on the planet doing their thing. Everybody's trying to, sort of be cutting between the two, and the whole point of it is to try and put them back together again to try and, to get to overcome the problem that they're doing. Absolutely. That would have been fine. Okay, Burnham's on the planet. She's doing her thing. What's going on in Discovery? Tell us that. And then we can cut and choose between the two of them. And
meanwhile, on Discovery,
pretty much
have another game of ping pong.
And they just wouldn't cut to Discovery because what are they going to do?
Burnham's not there
on Discovery when Burnham's not there. And this is none of this is a diss on Sonequa Martin Green because I think she's a fine actress. And why wouldn't you sign up for this part? Because shit, the whole show's about her.
Yeah.
People complained about Rey in Star Wars being a Mary Sue. It's the Americans say. And it's so that with the Burnham, she's good at everything. There's nothing she can't do. There's no menace. There's no, real concern. And she'll overcome whatever the fucking problem is. Like, oh my God, she's surrounded by aliens with guns. She'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I guess I'm super tempted to come back and watch 1 or 2 more episodes just out of pure bloody mindedness to go, how much worse can this shit get?
See, that's exactly the reason why I go ahead and watch Adam Sandler movies. It's like, how bad can he go?
Touche. How much can I defile this thing that I love?
Speaking of, before we get off of Star Trek, have you finished your thoughts on Discovery?
I was just going to say one more quick thing on this, but basically, the the fact that the best thing that has come out of Secret Hideout and Kurtzman's reign on the Star Trek throne is Lower Decks.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That's not good. Lower Decks isn't good. It's not. It's just not terrible. It's fine. Fine. It's okay. Especially if you're a young kid and they want to introduce kids. But if that is the best thing on your CV that's come out of your, I don't know why they keep giving this man a job.
Okay, so my question regarding Star Trek, obviously, a while ago we got news that Captain Janeway was going to be coming back to the TV.
Yep.
You've resampled a little bit of the most recent Star Trek. Do you want them to go there? Or
No.
would you rather
No. It's being made for Nickelodeon. It's another animated Star Trek show. A group of teenagers steal a derelict Starfleet vessel and use it to explore the galaxy. Now, that could be interesting if done right. I think they're actually stealing my idea for a Star Trek
Porky's in Space.
Porky's in Space. I just, tell you what, he might do that, considering he got some crazy ideas he's doing right now, Mr. Kurtzman. No, what the hell is Star Trek doing on frickin' Nickelodeon?
I feel like Star Trek has entirely lost its identity.
I would 100% agree with that. I mean, I guess is it a bad thing that it's trying to make content for children? Probably not. I mean, why can't it be everything to anyone? I mean, Star Wars has its main, it's Skywalker trilogy, and it was doing Clone Wars as well, which was targeted at a younger audience. And I know a lot of people quite liked that, I think.
Yeah, it did some good storytelling in Clone Wars and Rebel Alliance as well. So
I guess in theory, a science fiction, I don't think Trek is Star Wars. It's not that big. But Lower Decks is kind of, that's kind of like Trek for Rick and Morty fans. It's sort of I know some people I've seen who are Trek fans go, "Oh, my kids like it," and I guess it's fine. I guess if it gets kids into it, but I just no, I don't understand. You're right. It's kind of lost its way. It's just kind of doing way too much. So this is now, if we have Star Trek Discovery, apparently we have Star Trek Picard season 2 still technically going to be happening. We have Strange New Worlds, we have Lower Decks, and we have Star Trek Prodigy. And apparently there's rumors going around of something with the guy, Captain Sisko from DS9 going to be coming back to do something else as well, apparently.
Which one is Janeway supposed to be in?
He's going to be in Star Trek Prodigy.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's a lot of Trek, and I feel like, interestingly, the Star Trek universe should have more possibility to be more diverse because it is so big, and because of the very successful TV shows of Yonder, when they were introducing new races and different cultural elements of them and the amount of canon that has been built out around them, I feel like there's more to play with, more to safely play with in that versus Star Wars, sorry.
It's a universe for sure, and a lot of stories one could tell in it. If you haven't picked it already, listeners and viewers, I don't think there are wonderful stories to tell, and a lot of stories one could tell in the Star Trek universe. Kurtzman hasn't succeeded in telling one yet. So one particularly, he hasn't succeeded in telling one good story yet, or one successful show yet.
The Star Trek reboot was good.
He wasn't involved in that. That was Abrams.
He wasn't one of the writers?
I'm going to put that down to J.J. Abrams, but I think he might have been involved. But I am going to say I don't put that in the Kurtzman universe. That is a different.
That's fair. That's a fair point. Yep.
Roberto Orci was involved in that, who I think a lot of Star Trek fans maybe.
That's Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman were the writers.
It's a little bit like how Damon Lindelof got a leg up by Abrams as well and went off to make his own shitty television shows after working on Lost. So, I'm one of the few people who likes the Kelvin universe, the first two anyway. And a lot of people don't like that as well. but yeah, I just don't think he's told one in his TV shows at least. I'll give you this. I don't think on his own, his reign doing the TV shows, he hasn't had a particularly successful run on any of them yet. So maybe you should get one right before you start doing 5.
I think the problem with Kurtzman is he can actually be a really good writer, but he has, in the last kind of 10, 12 years, been pretty much involved in almost everything that has had a pilot season come out and died. And I feel like, okay, you are clearly doing too fucking much, dude. Cut back, bring up the quality, not go with quantity, please.
I would say I don't think he is talented at all. I don't think he's ever done anything particularly good on his own.
I really like the Fringe stuff. On his own, yeah, I think that since his split with Roberto, I feel like his quality has definitely dropped.
Fringe, I don't think he's been involved in successful stuff, but none of that, I think, was strictly speaking his stuff. Like Alias, Fringe, that's Abrams, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So he's on board, sure, and he's doing stuff. So he's got that on his resume. But how much was he the driving creative force behind stuff like Alias and Fringe? I doubt it, because J.J. Abrams is the bigger name, and it's all post Lost. So he would have Abrams' word goes. And same thing with the same sort of thing with the Trek reboots. It was Abrams's film, right? He was just along for the ride. Yeah. And other than that, when the stuff he's been singularly responsible for is stuff like The Island, The Mummy, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Now You See Me 2. I mean, everything he's done has
middling at best.
At best, and that's generous. And like I know it's an online sport now to kick the Kurtzman. There are people out there who truly hate him, but I hate pretty much everything he's done with Trek.
And that's all I have to say on that.
I know it's unfashionable, and everybody's like, "Oh, you're just a hater, and you're toxic, and blah blah blah." I'm like, "Well, it sucks."
That's absolutely you're entitled to your opinion. If other people enjoy it, then good. But you know, what about Star Trek? If you've got all these shows, give us something that we actually like. You know, actually serve all of the audiences that you've got.
I mean, in theory, he is. I mean, Discovery is aimed at an older audience, and I imagine Strange New Worlds might be as well.
But, you know, yes, it might be aimed at an older audience, but it's a completely different type of storytelling and TV narrative compared to Star Trek, The Next Generation, even Deep Space Nine and Voyager. Those ones, they had a very different flow to them, and their pace was very different, and the way that they told their stories was just inherently different to everything else that modern Trek has brought out.
I think we talked about it with Picard. There was that, like, one of the creators or writers or producers, I forget his name, basically came out and said, "I want people to hate this. Basically, I want to kick people. Yeah. I want the people who like traditional Trek to hate this. I
want to challenge them." And
you're like, yeah, I'm okay with that, but I feel like the people behind this stuff, the secret hideout Kurtzman product, have a political point to make.
Yeah,
and they have a particular political perspective, and I'm fine with politics and television. I mean, original Star Trek was political. You know, the first on-screen interracial kiss was on Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's not a problem for me. It's just I feel that they've come in, they've gone, I have an agenda, and I'm going to use this television show to push it.
We need to tick all these boxes because that's what we want to do for society, rather than this will make compelling story.
And I don't have a problem with people trying to push. I actually probably don't really have a problem with their politics per se. It's just that it doesn't fit this show, or they fit it into parts of a show that don't make sense. And overall, it brings the show's quality down for me. So no one can say I haven't given it a fair shake and given it a go to try and impress me. And I really am disappointed that I think it's just something. I mean, it makes Star Wars and Star Trek. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to put in the. I'm not terribly excited about column.
Well, just, you know, I think maybe we'll leave this. We won't discuss it now, but for conversation for next week, what franchises from your youth still produce content now that still engages you?
My Little Pony.
And I will expand that to music as well.
Okay. Well, it's only for the. I've dominated the floor for a while. What's going on in your world?
So I smashed through the New Girl, which was released onto I think it was Amazon Prime Video and Netflix. This the Zoe Deschanel led, very stereotypical, group of friends in a New York in a US flat, and shenanigans ensue, and love conquers all that stuff. I really hated the first episode, but I thought, fuck it, I'll just keep going because I'm running out of things to binge on while I'm sitting at home doing nothing. And I managed to watch all 5 seasons of it, and I ended up kind of feeling very endeared and generally invested in the show. But the thing that I want to call out about that show is the final season. Because it relates to another final season which finally got released. So seasons 1 to 4, it's your very typical kind of generally Friends template of a sitcom about friends living together and romantic connections building, breaking apart, building, and all that stuff. What they do interesting in the final season is they do a jump cut to 3 years later, and it actually makes it a very interesting, compelling thing because all of the characters, they have written the characters and developed them, and they've had this time away. So it's not just a rehash final series. So like, oh, it's a fond farewell for all these characters, so we've just got to tie off all the loose ends. It's like, no, we're going to give you different things for that final season. It's not a rehash or so like, remember when we did this?
Well, like even something as great as Seinfeld, that was their final episode, was just a giant clip show.
Yeah, and I hate that kind of stuff. And that brings me to the final season of season 12 of The Big Bang Theory, finally released on Netflix on Friday, and it's bad. It's not as funny as any of it. It has been consistently diminished returns. I don't think that there should be any comedy show that I don't think there's any comedy show that can go on for more than 10 seasons before it gets really pretty much drag. And the final season is all about tying off loose ends, and it's like, okay, no, this don't you see that this is cheapening everything that was before, and you're just doing this because, oh fuck, we haven't got anything to step up into the Big Bang Theory's big shoes that are now emptying. We'll just do one more season. Why not? That gives us another year to tread water and find that next big thing. And it's really fucking annoying. Moving on to my actual topic of discussion is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Now, this is a show that has been kicked out of into the cold by, I think, 2 different production companies after like 4 or 5 seasons. It was on one network in the US, then it got picked up by another one for the next couple, then it got was going to be cancelled, and then Netflix have picked it up. And the first 6 seasons of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, led by Andy Samberg, with the other big name that you'll know in it is Terry Crews. And I started watching it, and it's great. It's the romance elements are in there, but they don't fart around with the will they, won't they, which is such a delightful change for a sitcom. They just are like, yeah, okay, this is what's happening. Oh, look, these people are grown up enough in a ridiculously stupid comedy show, but they are grown up enough adults to know that you can actually have an argument with someone without one tiny thing breaking that relationship apart, being the end of it, and then they're going to spend 3 years going, oh, maybe we'll get back together, maybe we won't. It's like, no, you fucking talk about this shit and move on. It is so refreshing. Andy Samberg is very good in this. I didn't know him from his SNL stuff, and he was apparently reticent to join the show because he wasn't sure if he wanted to go into another TV show straight off of SNL, but I'm glad he did. He He's in the first series as I'm going to bring up the cast list because there's a lot of really good ones in there, but I've not known any of their work before. But they do take probably 5 or 6 episodes of the first series to start really finding their characters and gelling together as a cast.
I feel like it's a very SNL-ish sort of show and cast. I feel like a lot of people might have made their names in that kind of.
I would imagine so. So you've got Andy Samberg as Jake Peralta. There's Stephanie Beatriz, who plays Rosa Diaz. Terry Crews plays Terry Jeffords, and he's essentially playing Terry Crews, I think, in many ways. A lot of it
always does.
Yeah, but he's charming. He's delightful. He's really quite lovely. Melissa Fumero plays Amy Santiago. Joe Latrulio plays Charles Boyle. Possibly the one to steal the show for me is Andre Breyer, who plays Captain Raymond Holt. And he is brilliant in that ultimate deadpan, because everything is said in this manner and he doesn't smile and he doesn't do anything, and it's played for jokes so very well.
It helps him, and he's actually done a lot of police procedurals before himself. He was on Homicide: Life in the Streets in the 90s, and then he was on again Law and Order.
Okay.
He actually played those shows are connected, by the way. We're in the same Wolf universe. The guy who made that was his Dick Wolf.
Okay.
But yeah, he plays that. That's probably where a lot of people maybe would. I recognize him in the commercials for it. I'm like, oh, he's the guy from Homicide.
Yeah, cool. Because I decided to give Brooklyn Nine-Nine a go because it's actually in the shared universe with The New Girl, because they have a crossover episode. They don't play too much into it. It's just sort of like extended cameos at best in each of those series. But it got me interested enough, and it was just really kind of turn your brain off and laugh at some fun things. So it was really just an enjoyable comedy. If you want something that is not your templated sitcom bullshit that we have been spoon-fed since Friends blew up across the whole globe, it's nice to have something that's irreverent, not trying to be political. It's just all these people clearly really enjoy playing their characters, and it's just great seeing them interact, and they're funny with each other. You can see that they're having a laugh. Apparently, every time they film it as scripted, and then they'll kind of go, okay, we're going to do 2 takes where we can just improv it, and they'll work out what's funniest, and then sort of put together the show based on whether it was the scripted one or an improv one. And I think that lends an air of kind of real humor to it, rather than this kind of very stiff comedy that seems to be produced now. And the other key thing that I wish more shows would do, it doesn't have a laughter track. So it's great. You can actually laugh at things that you feel funny, and you don't suddenly go, oh my God, like watching 3.5 Men or something like that. It's fucking painful. I hate laughter tracks. Don't tell me when to laugh.
Okay. I've never had a kind of visceral reaction, but to
I hate it. I hate it. It's one of the worst things about Black Books and the IT Crowd. No, those shows are funny on their own. Let me laugh when I want to laugh. And they have their serious moments in this as well, but they never take themselves too seriously. So it's just really, really enjoyable. So it was just a quick talk on that one. And then I'm just going to finish off another quick topic of conversation, because we are going a bit long today. I decided to continue torturing myself in many ways. I thought, you know what? Andy Samberg, I respect him. I watched 6 seasons of his show and I really enjoyed him. I'm going to watch something else. And I've watched a lot of, I've heard his voice in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 1 and 2. And he does the voice of Johnny in the Hotel Transylvania series. But I wanted to see him act. Unfortunately, the only movie that I was able to find straight away was the Adam Sandler movie, That's My Boy. And
Have you learned yet?
Hey, I take these punches so that other people don't have to. I am a noble soul. That's my boy. Okay,
My
so
boy. So this is the 2012 film. It's
so-called comedy, yes. While in his teens, Adam Sandler's Donnie fathered a son, Todd, who Donnie named Han Solo, and raised him as a single parent until Han Solo, Todd, decided to effectively disappear on his 18th birthday. Now, Donnie resurfaces into Todd's life just days before Todd's wedding, looking for $46,000 to pay for his tax, or else he's going to go to prison. And obviously, as the tagline will say, hilarity ensues. Unfortunately, it's not funny. It's gross. It's crap. This is, it's. I don't know what Susan Sarandon's doing. She's got a cameo in this. I think it must be the Andy Samberg Lonely Island connection with Dick in a Box and Mother Lover and that sort of stuff. Because I don't know why else she'd be in this movie.
Money.
Yeah, maybe.
She didn't get divorced recently, did she?
I don't know. I think her and Andy Dufresne are still together. Tim Robbins. There we go. But who knows? This movie is just a train wreck. I don't know what it's trying to do. It's insult comedy, but it's like everything about it is based around essentially Donnie, Adam Sandler's character, is kind of stunted growth. What a change for her, Adam Sandler, hey, to be someone who's essentially perennially stuck in the late 80s and 90s, and that's his solution to solve everything. And suddenly, for some reason, all of the adults, grown adults in this thing who are all tied up and serious, they gel with this and they love him for it. Like, oh, wow, what a big change of pace for Adam Sandler. And yet everything is just insulting to those mediums, and it's trash. It really is trash. And it's got a Metascore of 31%. And some people, I was looking online, there have been some critics saying, oh, this is arguably the worst movie ever made. It tries really fucking hard to get that title. It really puts effort into it, because the amount of the level of gross out, they had to have really been trying to hit that. And it's just bizarre. It's so weird. The opening sequence is young Donnie kind of playing it, being really cool, and he's saying, oh, I don't like girls anymore. And one of his friends is walking down the corridor with him at school and says, oh yeah, me neither, I think I like guys. And he's like, no, I like women. And he starts aggressively flirting with this young teacher, and then she says, oh, go, you're in detention. And then straight away she's being ridiculously flirtatious and leching onto him. She drags him into her office and they start having sex, and there's another kid there. It's like, wait, what? This is pedophilia. What the fuck are you doing making this comedy? And it's not funny. What the fuck? And then it's just so weird. But then the weirdest thing about it is, for about 80% of the movie, the character of Donnie, there is bizarrely so many similarities to Donald Trump. It's weird. He takes he takes credit for everything else in the world, and he aggrandizes it, all of his actions, to be so monumental. It's like, holy shit, is this somehow current? What? This is just weird. But unfortunately, unlike Donald Trump, who we hope will learn his lesson, Donnie doesn't. He doesn't really learn anything. No one really learns anything.
I would go out on a limb and say I have zero chance that Donnie or Mr. Trump are going to learn a lesson anytime soon.
So I just don't get this movie. So this is another movie on Netflix starring Adam Sandler that your resident punching bag has taken for all of you fine viewers and listeners, so that you don't have to.
Fair. It's public service, really. I don't find Andy Samberg funny at all, ever. Anything he's done, I think he's deeply unfunny. Other than, I'm going to say, I think Lonely Island's pretty good. Some of their music is actually probably as close as he's ever got to funny. But I don't get. I mean, he's out of an SNL school. I said it before. I've watched SNL quite a lot over the years, and every now and again they'll pull one out of a rabbit out of a hat, and they'll be like the cheeseburger sketch, or the more cowbell sketch. And when you look at the talent of a show, people, or Tina Fey doing a Sarah Palin impersonation, I can see Rachel from my house. It's like so successful that it enters the public zeitgeist. So when they hit it out of the park, with the amount of talent they have available to them, they really knock it out of the park. But it's like a 1 in 100. Like every one joke that lands like that, there's 100 awful jokes. Like I know Samberg, he's very successful, and he came from that. I don't get him at all. I've seen him in some of his TV stuff, and his film work he hasn't done a lot of film work, surprisingly.
No,
and probably. It's surprising considering he's so successful on television. Yeah. But so it doesn't surprise me that it does sound like the kind of film that will work there, right? His comedy, his kind of stupid, gross out, sexual teenage comedy would kind of work well with Sandler's brand of similar stuff. But
that's the thing. The stuff that I've watched of Andy Samberg is actually not gross out. It's just it's stupid humor. It's those moments of like, fuck yeah, he's saying out loud what a lot of people just think when it's like going back to his work in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's a character. Jake Peralta is obsessed with the movie Die Hard, and he's a cop, and so everything that he does, he's just just making these similes in his head. And so like, oh, that's like when Hans Gruber, and he just says it out loud. And the comedy is that he's kind of that innocence of no filter, and everyone around him is kind of looking at him as like, you're stupid. Maybe it's because I do that a lot myself, but I just find that him in Brooklyn Nine-Nine funny, whereas he doesn't do that in this. He is kind of trying to play the straight man, and he's not. The way that his voice is, the way that he talks, and the way that he moves, it's not the straight guy in a comedy. He is that kind of the slacker guy. That's what his voice always sounds like. You know, even he did voice work as the heretic in the Dark Crystal series, and even then it's still kind of like, all right, yep, still kind of stoner slacker kind of thing. That's his thing. He has found his particular niche, and that's why he's kind of endearing as Johnny in Hotel Transylvania movies. That's why he's endearing to me in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So he is not Leslie Nielsen, where it's like, okay, I'm just going to play this straight. Doesn't work for him. And Adam Sandler has now just proven that he is determined to go as far gross out comedy as he can go. What can he get away with next is the thing. But yeah, I've talked far too much about That's My Boy. That is all I'm talking about this week. I will have much better things to talk about next week. I'm now going to invest my time wisely, especially starting with next week's chain movie of The Thing.
It's going to be a good start. It's going to be a good start. Well, that's something to look forward to. We'll talk about that next week, and we'll talk about franchises that have hung in there over the years, and whatever else crosses our path.
I'm just making a note for myself.
Play us out, Johnny.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on the live streams on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. I've seen a few people popping in and out, and thank you everyone for the questions that you've been posing. Travis, if you go to Friedbrain Productions on Facebook or on Twitch or on YouTube, you can join in and you'll be able to see both me and Travis get the audio at the same time, and your comments will go straight into us so that we can see them as they launch up. But you'll be able to catch us. We'll upload this episode on Sunday evening for podcasts across the globe as well. But for tonight, thank you very much. I've been George Tarrant. That has been God, also known as Travis. We will see you next time.